And what I've been doing this whole time is going to the American embassy and saying, I don't want special treatment. I don't want to be saved by America. I don't want to be pardoned. I've done nothing wrong. All I want is the Romanians to follow their own laws. I'm not asking for anything special. I'm asking for a fair shot under the law. And the American embassy was completely uninterested in helping me or saying they had no power to help me, which of course is false. And we kept losing in court. DCOT broke a lot of rules to put this indictment together. And from my understanding, and this is speculation, the way it traditionally works in Romania is the DCOT will break a bunch of procedural laws to catch a drug dealer, but then they get the drugs at the end. And they basically say to judges, okay, we broke all the laws, but here's the drugs. And they kind of get away with it. But in our case, they never got that payoff. So they had illegal warrants, illegal surveillance, falsified conversations. They didn't allow us to legally represent ourselves in hearings we were supposed to be in. They didn't give us translated documents, which is illegal. They didn't give us time to read documents. There was documents in the file that we never saw. Like they broke 111 pages of laws my legal team found. And when we went to court for the preliminary chamber to say, look, they've broken 111 pages of laws, the judge said, that's fine. No problem that they broke all those laws. We'll fix it later, and sent it to trial. This was 3-4 months ago. And my legal team sat me down. They said, we've never seen this before. We have never seen a judge just allow a broken file like this on this level to go forward. And I said to my legal team, this is a matrix attack. This is a setup. This is designed to not only damage my influence, but I'm going to end in jail. And my brother and I resigned to the idea of going to jail. We appealed that decision to go to a higher court, which is the decision we just got now. We appealed to go to a higher court. I'm not saying it's related. I don't know. Donald Trump wins. And then the Romanians instantly start following the law. And the judges said, this whole indictment's illegal. All of the evidence you collected was illegal. The house search was illegal. Stealing all of his cars and all of his things was illegal. The statements that you gathered were illegal. The psychological reports were illegal. You didn't do anything legally. Everything here was a stitch up. And the goal was to throw him in jail and find something to stick, and you couldn't. And they gave the file back to DCAT and said, you have 5 days to fix the file. That's what happened a few weeks ago. But of course, how do you fix a file which is completely falsified from head to toe? You can't. So DCAT replied to that request with, we don't think it needs fixing, we think it's fine, effectively, which is extremely arrogant to say to a judge.
It's important to understand that the deranged, psychopathic, mentally broken women who have lived their lives at war with reason, logic, coherence, masculinity, have not directed this attack out of seeking justice. That's obviously clear when you look at the type of haters Andrew Tate has, posting still to this day feverishly on accounts dedicated to the way he exists in the figment of their imagination. It's crucial to realize the people who have directed this assault against Andrew Tate for 3 years are the most deformed, broken humans alive. They're ravaged by resentment. They're low IQ. They're incompetent. They, as leftists, can't stand reason, rationality, or any form of coherence or impressiveness, therefore derivative of coherence, because that would judge them. And because they're leftists, they believe that coherence and objectivity are manifestations of oppression anyway, therefore making them victims and therefore making them good people. So we're dealing with the most destroyed contingent of people. That's the reason why, despite the fact that the Tates are free, the way things will be proceeding with the second file is unclear, because none of their strategy made sense to begin with. It was only targeted identitarianism. And this is what defines the left, guys. Targeted, psychopathic, incoherent, animalistic, freak show campaigns that are animalistic because they don't care about what they sacrifice in the meantime. They don't care that they sacrifice their self-image, that they sacrifice their individual well-being, or that they're humiliated in the eyes of everyone. They're purely driven by this resentment for impressive, rich man who is strong and is respected by young men and is an embodiment in every way that he exists of the way we are failures and deny reality. This is how I know they're leftists. The image people have of them, their pride, everything. For this cult, for this cause, proves that they're serving something else. That something else is the ideology which commands them to say Andrew Tate's identity is unacceptable. Strong, rich, alpha, tall, respected by every man on the planet, can fight, drives fast cars, speaks unapologetically, unafraid to say what he thinks. There's a reason why they targeted him. That's it. And we now, of course, know that that's the case, or I should say, the normies now know officially that that's the case because legally the first case was just thrown out after 3 years. Now, am I expecting an apology? From a sane person, I would say yes, but it's been abundantly clear to me since before this war started that we weren't dealing with rational people. We're not dealing with moral people. The same people we're dealing with are the same people that say murder is good when they see somebody kill a CEO, or they're the same people that say there is no such thing as terrorism. Reference the video that I published yesterday. We're dealing with destroyed contingents of humanity, and so this is a new form of problem. We have to adjust to the fact that these people are functionally inhuman when it comes to their ability to reason, use logic, engage with objective morality, because they've demonized all those things as inherently oppressive.
What do you call them in the second file? If they haven't even charged you, just allegations?
Yeah, so the second file, they put together this big file. They raided my house for the fourth time. They stole all of my wealth again. They stole all of my cars, all of my money, all of my gold, all of my watches, stole all of my electronics, stole
Which
everything
they
they
had
can.
to
They put me in
return.
front of a judge and said that I'm
Which they
guilty
had
of
to
all
return.
these insane things, human trafficking of 38 people. On that list of 38 people, by the way, are my gardener, my house cleaner, the mothers of my children. Like, it is the most laughable bullshit
Right.
story. Any female I knew.
Right. That's important that you realize that coherence has no place in the way the left operates. It's purely a cult. It's purely, you're not a part of us. We're going to indict your mother. We're going to say your gardener's a sex trafficker too. I must hammer home to you guys that we're not dealing with rational people. And hopefully for the new people that find this and watch this, some of them will be destroyed, people on the cult, on the side of the left that are beyond reaching. But some people will get to decide, do I want to live a world where I look like Ethan Klein and, consider myself incapable of competition against competent men and I demonize competent men as oppressive and corrupt so that I can justify my loserdom or, be fat, etc., unambitious, demonize all competence hierarchies and just live your life as an incompetent loser, or do you want to aim up, do you want to face the world coherently, etc. We are beating these people because they're wrong, because they're incongruent, because they're incompetent, because they're psychopathic, because they're bad at engaging with reality and freaks on every level. But I'd say, because our side is the side of responsibility, that we should increase our responsibility even further and say we should prevent these humans from damaging civilization. We live in a time of extremes where certain sects of the population have rejected reality completely, demonized any form of objectivity or truth or masculinity as untenable. And so those of us who have decided to be champions and be heroes of the truth by not shying away and embracing cult-like ideologies of victimhood and leftism, we have to make up for the people who have been destroyed, who have sacrificed their lives on the altar of insanity. And it's not just enough to outproduce them or be more reasonable than them, because we already do that. We have to crush their psychopathy with the truth, because that's what they have, psychopathy. A psychopath believes they're above reality, meaning above objective morality, and above you. And that's how the left functionally requires people operate. Andrew Tate is proven innocent, but this is just the beginning.
Judge says you're guilty, you're going to trial, and then giving the same piece of paper to another judge, and they say there's no evidence at all. How does that even happen? It's the same piece of paper. How can you have the same file and two completely different rulings?
Because one judge was a part of that cult. They were either in that cult or bought by that cult and therefore controlled, and the other was looking at things on the basis of merit. These are the two possibilities, the two worlds people get to choose they can live in. One is in the image of insanity, reality denial, anti-masculinity, anti-coherence, anti-reason, and the other reflects reality.
And I made a conscious decision to not shut up because I was prepared to go to jail and people know I was being unfairly treated and I'm innocent,
Right.
as opposed to walk with the stain because I don't want the last name Tate tarnished. I refuse to have that happen. I'll do 10 years if everyone knows I've done nothing wrong. I'm not a coward and I'm not afraid, but I
Right.
refuse to just shut up and take a little plea deal on the sly and bounce like Hunter Biden with a pardon or some bullshit and everyone know I'm a scumbag. I didn't want that. So I took the most risky route in the first place, which is just to tell the truth from the very beginning that
Right.
this is all a setup. And the fact
That's
it's
who
now
real men
looking
are,
like
though.
it might pay off for me is truly remarkable.
When you call it a setup, I've asked you that question in previous discussions, but it was a pretty tricky time to answer it. Can I ask you the question now? You're in a better position to answer why you think they did this. What is the reason that you're facing this lawfare?
Well, all wars in the world are a battle for influence. It doesn't matter if it's a Cold War or a hot war. The reason there's a war in Ukraine right now, or a war in Gaza, or a war in Syria, the reason bullets fly is so that somebody can get control of a geographical area and influence that area. They want to tell people what currency to use, what things to think, what religion to be, who to respect, who their leader is, what roads to drive on. That's what wars are. And I became monumentally influential. It wasn't a hot war with bullets, but I was fighting against the Matrix in a time where they had complete control.
Right.
And I managed to become extremely well known and notoriously famous amongst young men, which is the primary demographic they need to psyop the hardest. They need young men to go be the backbone of the slave force. They need
Exactly.
young men to go die.
And if they can psyop young men out of being ambitious and masculine, then they get rid of their biggest threat to the woke mind virus, which says there's no such thing as meritocratic hierarchies, aka capitalism, aka competition. You're not going to stand out in contrast to us, therefore rendering us obvious losers in comparison to your greatness. That's the reason they target young men so viciously.
You lose your contract. If you're an actor and you tell the truth, you're not in movies. They can stop you talking. I became famous by leapfrogging all of these gatekeeping mechanisms. And they tried to delete me from everything and it didn't work. So then they came along and offered me $50 million and a sponsorship contract as long as I adhered to certain brand guidelines. Effectively, shut up. And I turned that down. And I've explained this on a video, which I'll retweet at the end of this, explaining exactly how the process works. But I was the most Googled man on the planet, speaking to the number one demographic they're most afraid of, who they couldn't gatekeep, couldn't get rid of, and rejected their money. So what comes after that? Shut him up. And how do you shut someone up? Well, you either put a bullet in their head. If they're refusing to bow to the intimidation like I did, you either put a bullet in their head or you put them in jail. So all of a sudden, I got an
Tale as old as
inkling
time.
that after I turned down the 50 mil, I said to Tristan, we have problems coming up. And I started saying on every single podcast, they're going to put me in jail. Don't listen. Don't listen.
Right.
What's actually most disheartening is that when it happened, even though I predicted it, even though I told the truth, even though COVID had just ended, even though the media has done nothing but lie to everybody at home, everything they tell you is a lie, people still believed it. And I was sitting in jail flabbergasted without seeing any evidence. To this day, nobody listening to this has seen a beat up girl, a bruise, a mark. I thought I was a human trafficker. Who?
It's an excellent point, but keep in mind that evidence is irrelevant to these people. It might sound crazy that evidence is irrelevant to people who are trying to insist you're guilty of a crime, but that's actually the case. We're dealing with leftists who say murderers who murder people on camera are good people. We're dealing with leftists who say that terrorism doesn't exist when it's committed against people we disagree with. We're dealing with people who say that logic, reason, rationality, masculinity, and any form of coherence is by default oppression and corrupt. These people are at war with reality. Truth was never a priority to them. It's very important you understand this. And if you want to help support this fight, this spread of awareness, where we know a word of truth outweighs the world, go to the link in description, abrahambeier.locals.com, and subscribe for less than the cost of a coffee, because it'll anger the communists and it'll help support this fight because YouTube has demonetized the channel. So I appreciate all of you. The haters and freaks are in bad shape.